This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Covel. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. Before I jump in today, I have a little bit of a request. I need to do an FBI Freedom of Information request on a deceased person. Completely legitimate, and the FBI views a request on a deceased person as legitimate as well. My problem, I can't show this person is deceased. They are deceased, but I can't find the public obituary. This Social Security death index is a tad confusing. So if anyone can tell me how to show that someone died in the state of New York, I would be most appreciative of it. An online source, preferably. My little request out of the way, let me jump into where I want to really dive today. And first, to lay this out, I might get some bad language today. There might be some stuff that comes out of my mouth that if you have sensitive ears, maybe you will be upset with me. I don't plan to curse, but the content where I'm going to go today could force me to change my mind, become emotional, etc. First, let me read a bunch of news excerpts that will lay the foundation for where I want to go. First, a simple little excerpt. The Big Sky Conference named University of Montana runner June Eastwood, a biological male who identifies as a transgender woman, the cross-country female athlete of the week. June finished second in a field of 2004 runners at the Santa Clara Bronco Invitational. She helped Montana place seventh as a team. The conference noted in its announcement Tuesday, Eastwood previously competed on the University of Montana's men's team. Nothing to do with that yet. Just hold that thought. Here's another little news report that caught my eye. The student union at the prestigious University of Oxford has voted to put an end to clapping. Instead of putting hands together to celebrate something, students are now being encouraged to pull them apart, throw them in the air, and do what's called jazz hands when celebrants shake their hands in the air. Oxford isn't the only institute of higher learning to silence claps. The University of Manchester passed a similar rule last year. Manchester added the suggestion to the inclusion training for new students. The change is to help calm those where anxiety may be triggered by loud noise or clapping. It may also cause an issue for those with sensory sensitivity and those with hearing aids. Jazz hands are the British Sign Language movement for applause. The use of silent applause will be encouraged at events held by Oxford's Student Union, and the group is now lobbying the school to replace applause with jazz hands at all university events. Jazz hands. I was not familiar with jazz hands. But just to hold that thought for a second. Now here's where it might get a little graphic, but at least I can give the Canadian court system some props. Recently, a man who has declared himself a woman with no surgery, no nothing, except wearing a dress, lost his case, her case, whatever you want to call the case. She had decided, as a man wearing a dress, calling himself a female, that he could go to waxing facilities and request, since he's a female, to have his female parts, which are still male, waxed. The women at the waxing facility said, go jump in a lake. The guy, dressed as a woman with male parts, then sued in the Canadian court system. Thankfully, she lost. Building on these assorted examples, let me give a little color right now and play an excerpt with Mark Zuckerberg being interviewed by a congressman from Texas named Al Green. I do have to provide a little bit of a color setup here because you're going to see where Mr. Green goes. It's useful to know his color. Because in a certain number of people across the planet right now, color is all that matters. So for this setup, Mark Zuckerberg is white, Al Green is black.
True that the Libra Association oversees the Libra project?
Congressman, yes.
And is it true that global corporations make up the association?
Congressman, the association is made of, today, 21 companies and nonprofit organizations as well.
Of the 21, how many are headed by women?
Congressman, I do not know the answer to that off the top of my head, but I can get it for you.
Well, I believe you can get it, Mr. Zuckerberg, but one would assume that you would know who heads these corporations that are going to be running this global company. How many of them are minorities, Mr. Zuckerberg?
Congressman, I do not know off the top of my head.
Are there any members of the LGBTQ plus community associated with this association, Mr. Zuckerberg?
Congressman, I don't know the answer.
Who acknowledge? There are many people who acknowledge that they are a part of the community.
Sorry?
You do not know. Mr. Zuckerberg, is it true that the overwhelming majority of persons associated with this endeavor are white men?
Congressman, I don't know off the top of my head the list of the people who are running the organizations in the association.
Isn't that the craziest damn thing that you have ever heard? Zuckerberg is there to talk about free speech, crypto, things that he does in his business. And this guy, Al Green, other Congress people are asking him questions about the color of people, their sexual identity, not anything to do with crypto. Others went on to ask Zuckerberg about his ability at Facebook to limit speech, political speech. So politicians who clearly have a bias, in America at least, they have a bias to one side or the other. Politicians in public are requesting that Zuckerberg limit certain speech they don't like. Give Zuckerberg credit. He held his ground. And to quote from a great article, the truly insidious aspect of this effort by many Congresspeople is they're dressing up censorship as the protection of democracy to try to convince citizens to give up core free speech protections. In that silence that would follow, few would be able to object. After all, the censors could merely treat censorship objections as simply more lies to take down. One last example in my setup here. China, Hong Kong, and LeBron and the NBA. Such an interesting situation. Now, I want to give a little setup from my perspective first. For those that are not aware, and it's easy to not be aware if you are in America, Hong Kong is part of China. It is China. It's bound together in a system that has two systems, one country. And this will last until the year 2047. This happened because when Great Britain handed over Hong Kong in 1997, they developed this two systems, one country approach. But Hong Kong is China. Hawaii is America. You got to start with that understanding. You don't have to like it. You don't have to like China. You don't have to like America. But Hong Kong is China. Period. Fact. To add to this China perspective, China's form of government is different than Western democracies. Very different. Is that good or bad? It depends. I don't know of a Shanghai in America, the city Shanghai. There is not one in America. It doesn't exist. I'm not sure there's a Shenzhen in America. It doesn't exist. Why do I say that? Because in this whole China conversation, there's been this implication that China is like the former Soviet Union. Maybe in its governance structure in some way it is. But when it comes to the economics, when it comes to the capitalism, and many Americans don't understand this, and they are being told the wrong information. China is absolutely driven by markets. Yes, they have some state businesses, etc., but it is a very capitalistic, market-driven society. Now, you might not hear that or understand that if you're in America. You really might not. Why do I bring up all these points today? We have reached this funny point of irrationality. Facts don't matter. We're in a post-fact reality. Go back to the example with the men saying they are women to compete in women's sports. I have a way to solve this. I mean, right now, it seems that women are tolerating this. So if a man wants to say at 22 years of age, with his full parts, I'm a woman and I want to compete as a female, right now, women are letting him do that. I'm not sure why women are letting him do that, but they are. But here's a way, it's a little bit crazy, but here's a way that you could solve that. Go back to the ancient Greeks. If a guy wants to say he's a woman and compete as a woman, hey, everyone take off your clothes. Let's do the Olympics like the ancient Greeks. Then the farce will be even more pronounced. But you're probably still not seeing where I want to go today. Oh, sure, I can be incredulous about all these examples and look at the insanity of people's ability to understand and reason and to be logical. But that's not really what fascinates me about all of this. What fascinates me is the opportunity cost. Because if you go down the path of taking in information and taking information that is just kind of made up, not real, and assuming it to be real, there's an opportunity cost to that. All the time that you spend on stuff that is not real prevents you from getting ahead on what is real. So the trick in this day and age, if there is one, is the filter. Think about the poor 18-year-old kid right now being indoctrinated into the college system. He is learning all kinds of insane shit that will not help him or her to really advance. He or she is wasting his time on assorted gender studies which are just by and large crazy. Hey, this is a guy. He put a dress on. Now he's a girl. That takes away brain power from actually learning physics and calculus. Your brain can't do all of these things. So you're like clogging your mind up with stuff that's absolutely crazy. And there's an opportunity cost to that. Because if you do all the crazy stuff, if your mind gets filled with all of these crazy details added up over the months, over the years, one day you wake up and now you're doing jazz hands. Now you are fucking sitting in the audience, putting your hands over your head. And this is what jazz hands means. You raise your arms above your head and twist your hands. Now think about that for a second. We are actually training people to think like this. Now they do this to be inclusive. What about the blind people that can no longer hear the approval of their performance? So now you're blind and you're giving a performance and you hear the clapping. That was great. You got feedback. Tough shit. The blind people have now been sacrificed at the altar of the jazz hands. Does any of this make any sense? Is any of this useful? No, that's right back to my opportunity cost. Because if you are 18 years of age, if you are 30 years of age, if you are 40 years of age, if you are whatever years of age, if you want to learn, if you want to find clear thinking, how can you find clear thinking if you are adding into your mind purely political correctness? If you are just clogging up everything just to be PC, to fit in, actually, for those of you out there that want to get ahead, this is welcome news. The competition is weak. The competition is lost. The competition is engaging in behaviors that keep them from engaging in behaviors that might actually help their life, that might actually allow them to get perhaps more money, more freedom, more happiness, etc. I've been thinking about this quite a bit because the examples are nonstop. I've only given a few examples here today. We can find thousands. People are running their lives in this alternate universe, and they are just trusting that there is someone to take care of them, someone to tuck them in at night. As I have said fondly on this podcast many times, so many people lay in bed each night waiting for the government official to kiss them on the head figuratively and tell them that everything will be okay. There is a certain amount of weakness that's pervasive across society right now. And if you can just grab a hold of yourself and go back a decade longer and understand how quality people made quality decisions, we are just in a very odd time right now. And I'm sure this odd time is causing absolutely huge numbers of people to be confused, to not know which end is up. Look at it from the trend following perspective. The numbers of people that text me who want to day trade currencies with technical analysis because they read about it on some Facebook group, it's off the charts. I've said to people for a long time, for me, I got very little from an MBA program. I wasted a lot of time. But I took two core concepts. First, the sunk cost. If it's paid for, it's gone. If it's paid for, it's gone. You can't get it back. So if you blow the money on something, whatever it is, don't emotionally hold on to it. It's over. It's gone. Let go. Move on. Number two, the point of this podcast, the opportunity cost. The opportunity cost is if I do this, I can't do that. It's a great concept. Now, some of you might be saying, Mike, but you're wasting your time talking about this shit. You're on your podcast rambling away and ranting away about all this stuff. I just make the observation. I like to write. I like to communicate. I like to note what's going on in society. But I'm not living this shit. I'm not on some college campus, or I'm not somewhere in some community actually looking at a guy wearing a dress with his full junk pretending it's a girl. I'm not clamoring for the government to regulate speech on Facebook. I'm not wasting my time to create this system. I'm not pretending in my mind that Hong Kong is not China. Just take all of these different things that you can possibly imagine. You got this young kid, right? He doesn't have a lot of experience. But you start to fill his head with Hong Kong is not China. Men and women are the same. A guy can run in a girl's race and he is now a girl. Add all of these things up. And what do you get? You get a brain that's filled with something that makes no sense, an unreality. And that's the opportunity cost, because the other side is all the stuff you could have learned, all the things that you could have figured out. Now, let me add my little footnote to this, because some of you might think that I'm too hardcore. If there's some little kid out there that has a problem, I mean, transgender issues are absolutely real for some people. On the edge of the bell curve, some people have issues. And they need understanding, and they need resolution, etc. I'm not unsympathetic to that. What I'm talking about is society taking these issues of the minority and extrapolating it out to create political agendas to dominate the minds of people. This domination of the minds of people is the opportunity cost that I'm driving at. Because if you fill your head up with all this shit, how are you supposed to make good decisions? This is the only thing that fascinates me right now about the modern discourse. It's the propaganda, the acceptance of propaganda. And will we reach a time where a very large number of people do not have the ability to see the difference between propaganda and not propaganda? Now, here's the cool part, my closing thought. I don't really care. As long as I can exist, be healthy, be happy, etc., friends, family, I'm okay. And in a unusually perverse mindset, perhaps, I like the idea that so many people are walking through life as brain-dead lemmings, not competing with me. They've tuned out. They've given up. They're more interested in all of the propaganda. They've been seduced. They don't know up from down, right from left, right from wrong. They don't have a clue. And I kind of love that. I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.